Hello, climbers, and welcome to Season 3 of Climbing Mount CMMC. Hello, climbers, and welcome back to another episode of Climbing Mount CMMC, the podcast. My name is Kaleigh Floyd, and this is Bobby Guerra, and we are a part of an MSP called Axiom. We are CMMC Level 2 certified, and we are excited to share with you today some information about the 32 CFR Final Rule, where if you are new to the CMMC space, maybe you don't know a lot of what's going on, and you're a contractor or a subcontractor in the DIB, and you are like, what the heck am I supposed to do with this information? What am I supposed to do with this 200 and something page document that I have in front of me? Which, might I add, if you have a 200 something page document in front of you, maybe just get rid of the comment section at the beginning and start from there. But well, I digress. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to specifically go through the beginning of the 32 CFR Final Rule, which was established and actually put into process on December 16th of 2024. We are in 2025 right now. It is April 8th. So it's been into effect for just 4.5 months or so. Little baby still. So I get a lot of questions from contractors and subcontractors that are looking to do business with us, needing help on their CMMC journey, and they're like, I don't even know where to begin or what to look for, what's going on. So here we go. We're going to talk about this, and it's going to be all fully from the 32 CFR Final Rule. You can literally follow along with some of this stuff if you start from the very beginning of the rule. So don't scroll to any other page, just start at the beginning.
Yeah, this podcast is going to be 18 hours long because we're going to go through all
we're going to go through all pages.
Comments.
No, we're not. Please don't click away. I'm begging you. No, we're only going to talk about the highlighted parts that I decided to do, which I thought would be beneficial to all of you. And Bobby's going to color commentate on his perspective when actually going through this.
Full disclosure, I'm not exactly sure what she's going to highlight and talk
I'm kind
about.
of excited,
so I am going to get totally surprised, possibly bushwhacked by this.
I think it's going to be fun. I'm excited about it. So I want to start by talking about the history of the program and the intent behind it. So Executive Order 13556 talks about controlled unclassified data. If you really don't know what that is, well, if you are a contractor or a subcontractor that has the words CMMC Level 2 in your contract, spoiler alert, you're dealing with this data. It is a type of data that is not classified, but it needs to be secured, and the DoD is very upset that it has not been secured enough from when they created this in November 2010. Something that I think is very important to note is that controlled unclassified information, you might possibly be hearing about this type of information specifically for the first time, but it has been around since the executive order that I previously stated in 2010. That is a very long time. And so the DoD this is not a new thing. This isn't a brand new subject. They have wanted this type of data controlled in this manner for a long time. Now, something that I do want to note that it talks about in 32 CFR Final Rule is in 2019, DoD announced the development of CMMC in order to move away from a self-attestation model of security. So in the past, contractors and subcontractors working with the DoD were able to self-attest or say, yeah, I'm doing that. I swear, I promise I am doing that. And they would sign off on it, but they would never get, assessed, or a company comes in separately to look at them or see what's going on. So in 2019 is where CMMC was like, hey, this thing called CMMC, Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certifications, those are going to make you not just self-attest, but do even more. And that is a really big deal, because if you are stepping into this space And I say if you're stepping into this space, but guys, really, if you're a contractor or subcontractor, you've been in it. You just didn't really realize, okay? But if you're going on the path of CMMC now, this is something that has been in effect since 2019, but they just haven't been slamming it down until now. This is when the 32 CFR Final Rule kicks in December of 2024. When this kicked in, it was like, here goes the true phase-in rollout plan for CMMC. That started in December of 2024. And this is where it goes to where we are now, which, Bobby, you can kind of share. We've been preparing for CMMC before December, right?
Oh,
We've
yeah.
been preparing for very long. But it wasn't until January that you were actually able to go ahead and get CMMC level 2 assessed, right? And so if you're new to CMMC and what that means, there are 3 levels that you can, be categorized in: CMMC level 1, CMMC level 2, and CMMC level 3. Most people are probably going to fall into CMMC level 2. And Bobby, would you like to speak upon, is that just a 1 month, 2 month, 3 month kind of thing? Or is that something that is going to take a very long time?
Yeah, so they anchored the level 2 requirements to the full NIST 800-171 alpha implementation. So if you're going to get level 2, then you have to adhere to all 320 assessment objectives. So there's 110 controls, 14 families, so basically kind of categories. Each of those 110 have like little subcategories that the auditor wants to know that you have met.
Right.
Those are called assessment objectives, and they're broken out to 320 of those. So if you want to get level 2, you basically are saying that you're going to have to assess yourself or be assessed by another organization. And they want to know if you're compliant, and it's binary, it's met or not met.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And so that is a very big deal, met or not met. And there is 320 things they're going to talk about, 110 controls. And if you don't meet the 110, sorry, you snooze, you lose. And that is it. And so what does that mean for somebody who is a contractor or subcontractor listening to this? Well, if your contract has this on it, which I'm going to put up on the screen, the actual requirements that would be in your contracts that speak directly to CUI, right? Which is, 252.204-7012, 252.204-70, flip it, 21. 252.204-7019.
Right.
And I think there's one other one that I'm probably
7020.
missing. 7020.
And then 7008's also in there.
Right.
7008's like, hey, just to let you know, you really need to know about these other things. So, but yeah, and most people refer to, 7012, 7019, 7020, and 7021. And apparently once 48 CFR, the next rule, comes out, they're going to define another number that's going to be in there somewhere.
Yes, because we need another one. There's not enough. That's what I always said. Not enough numbers in the 32 CFR Final Rule. So the thing that I do want to highlight, though, is the DFARS clause 252.204-7012. It requires defense contractors to provide adequate security on all covered contractor information systems by implementing the 110 security requirements specified in NIST 800-171. That's exactly what Bobby was talking about earlier. Many contractors and subcontractors that I'm having conversations with already have this in their contracts, but they haven't heard of NIST 800-171. And that is also another thing that I like to emphasize to contractors that I'm talking to is like, just to let you know that these things have been in your contracts, and the DoD, I don't think, is sympathetic anymore to you not knowing what they are because you've already been signing that you're doing it. I'm not going to name names, not going to point fingers, but people haven't been doing it. And This
Well, I
has,
mean,
go
when
ahead.
clients reach out to us, they've been averaging somewhere around a negative 320. Like, I mean, they are like,
Yeah.
they
You can
have
get a
nothing.
negative on this score, which is kind
Yeah,
of
I mean,
scary. Yeah.
they basically don't have, for the most part, any controls
Yep.
appropriately applied. So, which is just astounding to me because 98% of them already have had the 7012 requirements showing up for years in their contracts that they've had. And you ask them, like, so did you submit a score of where you're at to the SPRS site? And they're like, oh yeah, we did. You're like, okay.
Well,
it's very interesting.
yeah. And just to emphasize, the part that I'm reading off with all this stuff is the overview of the current requirements for defense contractors and subcontractors. So this isn't something that's going to happen in the phased rollout later. This is things that they're just emphasizing that are happening right now. And the part that I'm going to say right now is, I think, something that every contractor and subcontractor, if you're listening to this, please listen to this part. To comply with DFARS Clause 252.204-7012, contractors are required to develop a system security plan, or an SSP, detailing the policies and procedures their organization has in place to comply with NIST 800-171. This is not saying that, hey, you have the phase rollout to make your system security plan and design it because one day in the future you're going to need that system security plan to do your assessment. No, it's saying, like, right now you should already have a system security plan put in place for all of the 110 controls for NIST 800-171. That is a big deal. So when people ask me, when do you think I'm going to see contracts show up? When am I going to see the level 2 assessment? Because that's what everybody's talking about. Level 2 assessment requirements show up. Like, when do you think that's going to come up in my contracts and things like that? Guys, this clause, this DFARS clause, is already in your contracts saying that you already need a system security plan. So
Right.
what I'm saying is, like, please stop waiting. If you have a chance to get started on this now, start it now, because you've already waited too long. If DFARS clause 252.204-7012 is in your contracts already, which probably many of you who are listening to this, you're already behind if you don't know what a system security plan is. So,
Well, just it's sort of astounding. It's kind of like saying, if you take out an insurance policy and you call your insurance agent and they go, oh, I'm so glad you called. I'm just wanting to know, when should I have the money ready for you if you ever make a claim? And you're like, excuse me? You're like, well, yeah. I mean, I just need to know, when should I have the money ready for you? And you're like, you should always have the money ready, because if I need it, it needs to be there when I make a claim. And I think that's the way the DoD looks at it, is they're like, we're giving you that data, so you need to be ready to be assessed, and all the security controls need to be in place.
Yeah.
From day one. The moment you sign that, they're saying you need to have that. But for a very long time, everybody just sort of took it like, well, if they come out and audit us, they'll just flag us on some things and slap us on the wrist, and it'll be fine. But that's not how it's going to be anymore, because the False Claims Act for that one organization that just dropped, like, this month.
yeah, I can put that up on the screen too.
3.4 or 3.6 million, something like that. Or no, I think it was 4.3 million is what it was. It was a lot. It is millions of dollars that they had to pay. And they were like a less than 200 person company. Like, they have no sympathy about that.
No.
So,
Well, I mean, it does make sense. But something that I will say too is, I'll put the part of it on here. I don't have it right in front of me, but up on the screen I'll share. There is a part in this rule that states, in no way is the phased rollout for CMMC discouraging people from just going to get their certification done now. Like, just because the phased rollout says, which there's 4 phases that it talks about. Phase 1 starting with self-assessments. Phase 2 adding C3PAO, or certified third-party assessment organization assessments. Say that 50 times fast. And then, into the full implementation in phase 4. It's not saying because in phase 2, you're going to be expecting all of the contracts with these DFARS, clauses on them to have CMMC level 2 assessments required, or CMMC level 2 certifications required. It doesn't mean that you wait until that phase to get your assessment. They're saying, please, for goodness sakes, just get it done as soon as you possibly can. And in that same paragraph, it says, also in the same world, that doesn't mean that we're not going to fully wait to put these in contracts until that phase. It just means that by that phase, you should definitely start seeing them in all the contracts. But they also kind of hint of like, hey, you're probably going to see it before that, though. So you should probably get ready before that, because we're definitely going to be getting ready before that and doing it even before phase 2. So, and I've seen and heard of people already losing contracts because they are not CMMC level 2 ready. So that's a very big deal. Okay. Now let's talk about if you, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I feel like it's going to be like Christmas for everybody, and not the good way. There's been plenty of times where you're like, oh, I want to get this exact present for my kid because I want to show him I love him. And you go to show up and it's the present that everybody wants, and it's not on the shelf. And you drive forever going to various different places, and guess what? It's not there.
That's a great point.
And the reality is that's what's going to be happening around June timeframe is people are going to start waking up from their Rip Van Winkle, and they're going to be like, oh my gosh, I want to go ahead and get this toy, and it's 2 days before Christmas.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. The ability to implement, and let's say that you make a terrible, terrible choice, and you get some specific out of the black box type solution that you can get from some provider, and they host everything and they're going to make it all easy for you. Let's just pretend that they're right, right? It's going to be in their environment, a separate thing, a virtual thing. They own it. They've got your data that you're putting in there, that you might store stuff there. Your whole system plan, your policies, all that are going to point to this system that you have that someone else controls and owns. That might be the only way you could get it done super fast, is do it that way. Put it in some cloud container that you don't really have real control of. That may not even be the way that you work. You might have manufacturing where you're generating stuff, and you have physical devices you need to plug in. You're printing it. Those are all real challenges you have. Those are complex to think about how that data flows through your environment. You've got to buy yourself time to consume this elephant, because it is huge. There's only 18 of us right now, and it was the hardest business thing that I've ever done. And it took us 8 months on a straight shot, but we've been working on it for like 2+ years. But once we sort of got aligned for the final push, it took us like 8 months to do it. And we're IT people, professionals.
Yeah.
And so it is no small feat to get that set up. And so you don't want to be that parent on Christmas. You're like, oh, I think I want to get him the, Tickle Me Elmo or the
Tickle Me Elmo. I think that was discontinued out of inappropriate.
Out of terrorizing children.
You chose that gift out of all of them.
It was a big one, when I was younger, getting for you guys. So.
Oh Lord. That's a great point, and it also makes me think too, if you are a contractor or subcontractor listening to this, and you heard what Bobby said, so it doesn't take a quick amount of time if you are if you are customizing it to your company and, doing it the way that you can stay efficient as far as manufacturing facilities and whatnot, and what is in scope and what is out of scope. The big word that I do want to emphasize to you guys is scoping. If you haven't heard of that word already, well, you should look into this. It has a whole section of what scoping is at the beginning of 32 CFR Final Rule. And it literally says, which is so cool, the program walkthrough perspective, and it's in the contractor perspective. So literally in your perspective, they talked about this and what scoping exactly means. This is a very important part to your CMMC journey, and it's like the start of it. You have to decide what part of your environment is going to be in scope and potentially touching the CUI or the data that would be processed, transmitted or controlled in that area, and then what is going to be out of scope of that and what could potentially not be in the assessment and not have to deal with that environment. So you have to create the scope. And if you're somebody that doesn't know anything about technology, that's going to be very difficult to create the scope. It's not all just like you can just assume, because some endpoints or things that, will open wall circles in your wall to where you can peer through or send stuff through. Sometimes you don't know that stuff about technology to be able to know if there is a hole in your wall or what, or how to create a proper wall. So that is where people, either you hire somebody inside internally to be able to tell you that, or you hire an ESP, an external service provider, kind of like what we are, that helps come in and help you build that wall and help you construct that so you don't have any holes that people can feed stuff through. The other part about that is the type of documents that are required for your CMMC journey. I said this before, a system security plan, that's not a new thing. If you are a contractor in the DIB space that has that DFARS clause that we were talking about before, you actually already are attesting to having a system security plan. So technically that shouldn't be new. But if it is new, you have to have somebody help you out in creating that, because it needs to be detailed enough to where when you bring that to your assessment, the assessor knows what the heck is going on. And that is not an easy feat. Bobby can attest to that for sure. It is no easy mountain to climb. And that's why I call this whole thing Climbing Mount CMMC. I want to ask you, Bobby, for, just for your perspective, or the people listening, you're building, a system security plan for your organization from the beginning, and from the ground up. About how long did it take you to first build that from the ground up? I know you created one for like the client perspective as well, but what would you say just for us as a company, how long it took you to build the system security plan?
About 2 years. The reason
Oh,
why it took me 2 years is it took me 2 years to figure out how to really write it.
yeah.
Because
You're not a documentation guy.
well, no, and like I was talking with Amir Armand from Curie Systems, and I was like, okay, I feel really bad. I've thrown out my SSP twice already, and I'm restarting it afresh again. She's like, good. Usually it takes about 2 to 3 times before you like really get it right.
Wow.
And it made me feel better that I had done that. But it's sort of like this time-honored tradition when you're writing an SSP, because it's such a complicated document. It's almost impossible if you haven't written one that you're going to get it right off the break. It's just like, hey, I've got to drive to work every day and I've never really seen a car, and here's the plans to build one. You're like, what chance do you have of not even being a mechanic and making it from scratch and then getting in there and just driving to, I'm going to order all these parts and just have it drop in my garage and just make this thing happen. That's sort of what you're looking down the barrel of doing if you have to create one and you haven't had a lot of experience doing those types of things. Now, if you've had like ISO experience or CMMI or, some other type of requirement that you've had that are heavily documented, at least you've got a fighting chance there.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a beast of a document to work on. And it took us, like I said, about 8 months to get it right.
Yeah.
Because we were tweaking it the whole time, those whole 8 months. It wasn't like we just wrote it and then we had 8 months to implement it. It was like, as we're doing it, we're tweaking, and we're still, I can't even tell you what revision number we're on our SSP now.
I bet Adam could tell you though.
Yeah, we're quite a ways down.
Yeah. But I think that's important to note for you. You have a lot of technician background. You've been in the IT world for a while. And you also went through a CMMC certified professionals course before that,
Yeah.
correct? So just because you hire somebody that might be, a CCP or have gone through the class, or you send your intern through the class and then expect them to do it, does not mean that they will be able to do it in 8
It
months.
helped,
Yeah.
but it didn't prepare me to
didn't.
write an
Yeah.
SSP. It didn't even in the CCP course. When I sat it like 2+ years ago, I was like, well, can you give me some more information about, like what a good one would really look like? And all they could show me was the like DoD, like stripped out, absolute bare bones template that everybody chose.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not a genius, but that ain't going to get me through anything.
Yeah.
You just don't, if you don't know what right looks like, right? I mean, then you can throw just words on there and say, well, I think that looks good to me. But until you have looked at something that has really been assessed
Yes.
and get a good idea, then it's a real challenge.
Yeah. And this is why if you are, starting off this journey or starting off creating your SSP, if you don't know really where to start, it is probably better to talk to a consultant or somebody who can at least get you at a good starting place, and maybe you don't have to mess up a few times and try to figure this out on your own before you get a right direction. There are some people that can point you in those directions. Like, I mean, you even said Kiri is a great example. Like, there are people that do this for a living that could help you. Now,
Yeah,
the more you wait, I'm not sure how much they can help you because
Right.
they might get overrun, but
I would equate building your own SSP and your whole CMMC-based accurate system, like a compliance system, would be the equivalent of the average person building their own house. Like, I'm not joking. Like, it's like that complicated.
no, I'd be
because there's-
screwed.
Yeah, well, I would be
hands.
too, right? I mean, I know, I've got table saw, I got all kinds of stuff, but there's a big difference between, doing a table and building a house. Like, it is infinitely more complex and way more different. And CMMC is no different. It is very complicated to do. There are people on this planet that could do it multiple times over. But that's what they're good at, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you're trying to do this on your own, and management has, saddled that to you,
Yeah.
you may want to push back a little bit about that, because that's really what they're asking you to do, and they don't know better,
Right.
They're just like, figure this out. I
Right.
just want to make money. I just want to keep doing what we've done. Can we do that? And you're like,
Yeah.
no, you got to pass your audit.
Yes. So the one thing, the last thing I want to talk about is flow down. This is something that the DoD talks about in the 32 CFR Final Rule. It actually has a nice little document that I'll put up on the screen too for our viewers, that talks about the flow down requirements from primes, like prime contractors, to their subs, so to subcontractors. So maybe you might be a sub that's like, okay, well, this might affect, the big contractors out there first, but then when does it happen to us? Well, in the 32 CFR rule, it basically calls out prime contractors, saying that, hey, it's your responsibility and it falls on you to make sure that the subcontractors that you're working with are qualified for what you're going to have them do. So basically, it falls on your shoulders to make sure that if the requirements that you're taking on a contract is CMMC level 2 requirements, that your subcontractors that are also going to be working on it are CMMC level 2 certified, just as you are. That has scared a lot of primes that are working with subcontractors that are like talking, some are talking and some are not yet, to their subcontractors and saying, you need to have it by this date, or you need to tell me that something is happening along this line. It's like whether you're talking to a C3PAO, you have your assessment date scheduled or whatnot. And if you don't, you can't do business with us, because we don't deal in pinky promises. We deal in certainties, because then it screws them over.
Yeah.
So technically, a lot of subcontractors are getting pushed this even sooner, because the primes are scared that they won't get it in time. So they're pushing those requirements now to their subcontractors to make them do it sooner. And so if you are a subcontractor, keeping your head in the sand or closing your eyes and going la 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 la, I don't hear, is not the right call. I would really recommend having a conversation with your prime contractor, or like your contractor above you, your superiors, to know what they're going to be expecting of you before they just tell you it and then you lose, a part of that contract because of it.
Yeah, I was talking with an 8A small set aside organization. They did base construction work. And they're like, yeah, I'm not sure if CMMC is going to be a thing. This was before 32 had come out, and or even 48. So this was earlier last year. And I'm like, oh no, it's coming out. Like, it's like December, October, November, December timeframe is when this thing's going to drop. Like, it's a real thing. It's happening. They're like, yeah, okay. I'm like, so do you have any subs? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, so are you flowing stuff down to them? And they're like, no. And you're like, okay. So you guys are working on, they're giving you base drawings and things? Because you got, yeah. I'm like, I'm not a genius, but I'm pretty sure if they're giving you military base drawings, that's going to be CUI. Because they don't want that posted on the internet. So that's going to be like, and then if you're passing that down to your subs, that's got to flow down. So, if you're the prime, you have that burden to pass that data down. And I can't tell you how many times I've asked clients about that, and they were like, what? I'm like, yeah, if you're passing data that's down to them, you have to make sure that you're not passing them CUI.
Yeah.
Because if you do, you're bringing them in scope just like you're in scope.
Yep.
And then you're on the hook for making sure that they are following, the whole chain of custody of that data, and that they have a compliant environment to receive it as well.
Exactly.
So it gets super complicated along those lines. And so you really, really got to watch the front door and the back door, right? So the data coming out and the data flowing down to someone else below you, that you're doing it in a compliant fashion and you're paying attention to those types of things. So those those aren't ignorance bliss kind of topics. You really do have to pay attention to that.
Yeah.
It's a really big challenge.
Absolutely. Yeah. And because of how big of a deal that is and how big of a challenge it can be for primes, that's, going back to what I said before, that's kind of why I'm noticing subcontractors that I'm talking to are saying they're already required, even if they might not handle CUI, that their primes are saying, well, I don't care. You need to be CMMC level 2 compliant, because just in case spillage happens or something happens, I don't want to be on the hook for that. So although I'm not thinking that I'm going to be giving you like processing, storing, or transmitting CUI, just in case, I am going to make you have the requirement if you work with me, because I don't want to be on the hook for that, Yeah. So please make sure to look out for these things. And I really encourage you. It's not a super long read, okay? I'm sure you probably read a book or two that is much longer than this section. So please make sure to, if you have time, check out the 32 CFR Final Rule. I will link it in the description below. Check out just the first 7 pages of it, okay?
Because the first bit of it is just the history and the reason behind why it exists. And then they have this comments. So if this is the first time you're reading and you're not really following it, there was a pre-rule that was written called the proposed rule. That proposed rule had a comment period where people wrote a lot of questions and said, what about this? What about this? What about this? Yeah, I think it was like one of the most commented DOT rule that they'd ever seen. So people had all these comments. And so that's what you see in the subsequent pages is all the responses to the comments. And there were so many, they just sort of jumble them together. So you see this kind of homogenization, like here's the person said this person said this, this, and this, and here's our response.
It's like about like the 65 pages of it.
Yeah, it's like a lot. And then like at the last part of the document is really the actual rule. So if you,
after those,
I liked reading the comments because I thought it provided a lot of insight. But knowledge may vary for everybody.
Yes. So make sure to check at least the first few pages if you are a contractor or subcontractor looking at this. But also, if you want to look at more stuff, you can check out our old videos too, the videos that we have. We've covered 32 CFR before when it first came out. We've covered a lot of other stuff, export controls. We've talked about system security plans and specifically how to build it. I talked with Adam about that, which was really cool. So there's a lot of resources. Make sure to check that out if you have time. And then also to make sure to follow us on LinkedIn or whatnot so you can be updated. We'll notify you with new content or new rules come out or whatnot so that you can be updated in that way too. But I hope you guys...
48's around the corner is dropping any...
48 CFR Final Rule is going to be showing up, and that's a pretty big deal. So make sure to tune in. Hopefully maybe we'll have a country song of 48 CFR soon too. And thank you guys again for watching. Tune in next Thursday for another episode of Climbing Mount CMMC. But until then, guys, keep on climbing. See ya. Make sure to follow us on LinkedIn and YouTube to stay up to date on the latest CMMC news. We hope you guys enjoyed today's episode and listen out for the next one. But until then, keep on climbing.